All right. So, hello and welcome.
Hi, Robin. So nice to see you.
Thank you. Very, very happy to have you here too. I'm speaking with Regina Reinhardt, my client and friend, in my first interview. So, I'm so excited to get started on this with you.
Wow, I feel very honored. Good luck.
Thank you.
Looking
Yeah,
forward to it.
let's see how it goes. So for anybody joining us, let me tell you a little bit about Regina. Regina Reinhardt is a cross-cultural consultant and writer living in both Greece and Switzerland, at the moment coming to us from Athens, right? And she's been running a coaching business called Reinhardt Coaching for nearly 15 years. Her articles have been published in Middle East Business, in Business Fit magazine, and other places, including on her blog as well. I met Regina in 2017 when we were taking a course on highly sensitive people. And since that time, I've had the privilege of editing her work, her articles, and her blog posts. And this has been very educational for me because, not only as an editor, but also as a reader, because I've come to learn about some very interesting topics like cross-cultural adaptation, third culture kids, highly sensitive people, virtual business, very hot topic right now, but we were talking about it even a couple of years ago, and others. So you are a font of information, of really useful information, Regina. So I'm really happy to be able to speak with you today.
Well, it's a pleasure, Robin dear, and I'm very, very glad that we met because you kind of, you helped me develop my writing side. So interesting enough, I'm writing not in my mother tongue, so I'm writing in English. And with you, I have really found that passion to write, and I feel, I really feel I can express myself better than in my mother tongue. And I've been learning a lot, and it's not 2 years, and it's really a pleasure. And even I can publish some of those articles and with the magazines you mentioned before. So it's big pleasure, and let's see where that path will guide us. Let's see.
Yeah, yeah, and actually, that's a great point for any of my language students if they're listening. Yeah, Regina is writing in her second language, right? Or is it third?
A third, actually, yeah.
Third language. Okay, you're writing in your third language, so that's quite a feat to be able to do that, express yourself there. So cool, very inspiring.
Hmm.
Well, that's me presenting you and your work. But is there anything else you'd like to tell us a little bit about your projects or your writing or your coaching experience, your personal experience?
I think you really mentioned most of it. Maybe just a couple of words to what I'm doing professionally and how I work. So, since 2006, I have been actually, I founded my own agency for cross cultural consulting, and it's my third career. So, and it's my first time that I'm on my own, doing my own business. And this is since 2006, as I said, and it's really, really nicely fitting my personality, my HSP side. Now a lot of, at the moment, now everybody is like working at home. I have been doing that since 2006. Of course, I go to clients when I do trainings, that's clear. But for coachings and other engagements, I often work at home. I love it because, for us HSPs, it's very nice to have, at least for me, HSP, nice to withdraw, have my space, work with, and then, of course, work with people one-on-one, like I work with you, Robin, across cultures, and across borders, across oceans, which is super, super nice. And yeah, so I have been a cross-culture consultant, like a coach, a trainer, a career coach, and I work with people who live and work across the world. And it's very exciting because it's never ever getting a routine, because every personality brings their own story and their own learning and their own experiences. So I'm still, after so many years, I'm still very excited, and I love doing what I'm doing. So I'm very, very grateful for that.
Cool. Yeah, thank you. That's another point, another facet that we've spoken about before. You know, working for yourself, working with long distance clients, and switching careers as well. So cool. You've done it all.
No,
You've done a lot. You've done a lot of it. Maybe not everything yet, but you know, you still have time to do it all.
yeah.
So the inspiration for our talk today is actually your latest article, which is still under revision, right? Still under the editing process. But it's so interesting and relevant, I think, to what people are living through right now with the coronavirus pandemic, that I just wanted to jump in right away and explore the topic a little bit with you in depth. So it's called Arriving in the Present. And I'll let you give a little summary of what that article is talking about.
To be honest, I just went back to read again before we met today, because one thing is writing it. So the way I write is usually really, really inspirational, and it's just like what is happening and what is also touching me and at the present. So what I realized is that the many years before in my career, I was, as I said before, I'm working with people who relocate from one country, from one part of their country to another one. And we help people to transition, to cope with the stress, to cope with, arriving, adjusting, finding new routines. And then Corona visited us a couple of months back already. And I realized that actually this is also a transition. Only this time, this is not a free-chosen transition, but it's something that was imposed to all of us. But we're all of us in the same boat. So it's no more like the expats making that transition, but it's for all of us a transition. And I actually think that expats who have done it before a couple of times have a tiny little bit of a plus here because they have been in that experience. But it's not only expats, and that's what I'm discussing and reflecting on in the article. It's actually a lot of people have done it before. So if you move to a new job in maybe a new state or in a new city, or you go from one industry to another one, or you change family because maybe you separate and you having a new partner, so you find also new cultures and new families. So actually these are a lot of tiny little transitions that we're doing, and we need to adapt again. We need to find new routines, so many more people have done it, just naturally. Children are very good in that, they just go very quickly from one to another culture or adaptation.
Yeah.
But now we need to do we are all kind of confronted with it, and I think the difficult part is really that we have not the choice. I was just talking this morning to a friend, and she said, I wasn't very well last week because I am not used to not have that freedom.
Yeah, that's one of the losses that comes up in a transition like this, right? Yeah. Okay, great. I really like the connection that you were making in that article between the stress that comes from the stress, and often ironic or even hidden stress that comes from making transitions like the ones that you're talking about, like a job relocation or immigration or integrating into a new family, and then trying to connect that to the pandemic that we're going through right now. And one of the main points that comes out of the article is the importance of the grieving process, which can kind of strike people as paradoxical in the case of a transition that we have chosen, right? Like, oh, this is my dream job, or this is a wonderful new relationship.
Absolutely.
What place or space or even time could I possibly find for grieving, right? And I think it'll be really interesting if we can explore that in connection to the coronavirus pandemic. I'm not seeing a lot of things go by, although I have taken myself off of Facebook recently for as part of personal stress management. But even when I was on it and following different articles that are coming up, I think I only saw 1 or 2 mentions of grief, the role of grief um, in the process that we're living through right now. There's a lot more talk of fear, of anger, or even optimism, right? Even people who are saying, I'm just trying to relax, I'm just trying to take this one day at a time. Or here in Quebec, we've got this little trend going with people putting up rainbows for their kids and a little slogan, ça va bien aller, like everything's going to be fine, you know, which I understand. It is important to have some message of like reassurance and hope, right? But I feel like these are the places that people are mostly trying to channel their energy and their emotions. I myself actually have been very past oriented in my reflections, and not on purpose. Things are coming to me almost unbidden, like, and really surprisingly too, things that I wouldn't, like connections and moments from the past that I wouldn't have even thought would come up right now. They are coming, and I'm noticing that that's often where my mind strays. And it did occur to me that, okay, that this is a moment for processing losses, or you know, feelings of sadness or grief or difficulty. And it can be hard to put your finger on what is the loss. You know, we're not going through a big period of mass casualty. Yes, there are deaths around the world. The death toll is much higher than it had been, okay, like 6 months ago. But at the same time, it's not like what the 1918 influenza was. It's not what many wars have been. You know, the difficulty of this is not that, you know, people are dying on a mass scale. That's one problem, but it's not a loss that you would think of typically, right? So I think I really love this idea of like, what are the more sneaky losses? What are things that we might have to grieve that we don't even necessarily realize that we have to grieve? So I guess let's talk a little bit more about the role of grief in the transition process.
Yeah, you're touching a couple of interesting points here. So as I said before, you know, those articles are also mirroring what is happening in my own life. So a couple of things happen in my own life. So in the beginning with Corona, I was rather on the positive side. You know, I was foreseeing quickly that this is gonna help humanity to transform, to transition, to learn certain things, to slow down. One of the first things, you know, we are so running, me included. You know, I'm, as you said in the beginning, I'm living between 2 countries, so I'm going forth and back on a regular. Having 2 houses, having family in another country, living in another one, forth and back. So a lot of forth and back. And though I would modestly say I have a simple life, still this is a lot of running around. It's a lot of making available of everything everywhere. My sister was just telling me this morning, and it's actually true, if you go for a vacation and you bring a bottle of wine back home, it doesn't taste as it tastes when you were on holidays. So we are so used to have everything everywhere, you know. Anyway, I don't want to get too long. So so I was on the positive side. Then a minor incident happened and a cat of mine died. And that started a little bit the grieving process. And then I was writing the article and researching, and I came across a very nice interview with Elisabeth Kübler-Ross, who is Swiss American, but she was born in Basel actually, and it was in Swiss German. So I was listening to that, and she was actually exactly explaining those stages of grief, which is, as you mentioned, it starts with anger, then comes the fear, you know, the sadness, actually, fear, anger, then the sadness, And when I was comparing that to the cultural stress curve that I'm talking a lot in my trainings, I felt like, wow, this is like an absolute parallel, you know. So these ups and downs and forth. And so I started to reflecting on that in the article, and I realized one thing, and from my own experience, because I also have done a couple of relocations between the same countries, but it's still, you know, forth and back. And culture stress doesn't stop. Unfortunately, it's never done. It keeps coming back. Is that if we don't say goodbye when we leave, which I haven't done when I was 8 years old, when I moved first time to Greece, because it was like my parents telling me we're going, and we were going. That was it. So saying goodbye to your friends, saying goodbye to places, school, teachers. It doesn't, you know, it's not only the intermediate, the core family, but just those places, the house, the pet, you know, that you cannot take, whatever it is. So if we don't do that consciously, it's okay, but it will come back one day, you know, it will catch you. And what I also see with a lot of clients is that the adaptation process in their new place, new country or new city or new job, new family, whatever it is, because it's so exciting in the beginning, and most people are like, wow, great, you know, I'm coming to Switzerland, this is amazing, or I'm having a new job, or I'm having a new family, new partner. We think that we cannot be sad at the same moment. We cannot say goodbye because it's so. This is a paradox, but I think it's so important to do both. It doesn't need like crying for 5 hours, but kind of walking through the apartment, saying goodbye and saying thank you for all these lovely memories you have in that apartment, you know, or going to that place that you in nature, which you kept going for yoga or just reflecting, or you know, reloading your battery, and saying goodbye to a couple of friends that are important, even if you keep seeing them afterwards, maybe online, or you come back, but still you are not going to be in their daily life, or they're not going to be in your daily life. So taking that few moments, because I know all these people are so super busy, you know, it's crazy lot of things to handle if you go somewhere else, you know, letting, you know, you need to unregister from here, you need to find new houses, you need to, you know, a lot of things to do, so a lot of logistics. But it will help you to, if you do that, especially if you have family together, maybe with kids, taking that time. Otherwise it kind of comes back when you try to adjust in the new place, you know, and you might not be able to embrace what is there, because in your mind you're somehow still there, back there where you come from, whatever it is that you come from. And this is kind of like a, you know, it's kind of tearing, it's like tearing you from two sides. On one side you want to be happy, you think you should be happy, but you somehow still sad, you know, and you feel like, why am I sad? I'm in the nicest place in the world, rich country, whatever, you know, or I have this new role, this new fantastic job that I always wanted, and still I'm not. So it's kind of a paradox, and I think it's important that we give space to both of them, being happy and sad. And that's actually also something that I saw with Elisabeth Kübler-Ross, death, which she talks about, obviously, which is a very heavy saying goodbye. Even there, it's not always super heavy. It can be also light. You know, you can be happy at the same time, or you can be acknowledging, you can be grateful for that time you have with that person, you know. So that's a little bit what I'm talking about.
There's a lot that's very valuable in there. I mean, there's even just a very important lesson in emotional intelligence, which is, you know, understanding that emotions, even contradicting emotions, can coexist.
Absolutely.
The same person, in the same person, and they can come out when you don't expect them. They can come out in strange ways, and I think it's important to try to accept and welcome them as much as possible. You know, I think we try to force our we can try to force our emotions into having some kind of logical coherence, right? Like saying, oh, well, I shouldn't be upset, right?
Yep.
I wanted this job, so I shouldn't complain. Or I don't know, I left that country, I left that relationship, I left whatever, so I shouldn't be sad about it, right? Or I shouldn't be sad about it several years later.
No.
Right. And sometimes it's weird how it comes out, right? Something can be resolved on multiple levels, but it maybe not on a particular level. And then it will come find you years later. And I think we often have a tendency to say, oh, I shouldn't feel this way.
Yeah.
Or I'm not allowed, you don't allow yourself to feel it. And so you resist fully inhabiting it and giving it its due, you know. And that's I think where you can have issues coming up.
Exactly. I call that a little bit the pressure cooker syndrome, you know, when you keep pushing it down, saying, no, now it's not time. Now, no, you should be happy. You should not be sad. You know, you keep pushing it down, keep pushing it down. And I think now where we slow down our lives a little bit, you know, where we have less to do, where there is less ways of distraction, if you want. I mean, you can still be in social media 24/7, but if you give yourself a little space, it's also a fantastic opportunity to open up this, you know, this pressure cooker a little bit, give it some space to have these emotions come out.
Yeah.
And this is actually what was happening also in my own case. You know, my cat died, but that kind of triggered old emotions that I had not been allowing myself. You see, I know the theory, but still, you know, the doing is a completely different cup of tea. For example, when I moved back to Switzerland to go and do my studies, again, I did not say goodbye, you know, to those 13 years of living in another country and being in this place, and or to my parents or whatever. And everybody thought I should be so happy being in Switzerland. I wasn't that happy, to be honest. But, you know, pushing down, everybody thought I should rather be happy. So I stopped even talking about it. And I felt like, okay. So I was a bad complainer, you know, always comparing what is better in another place than where I was. So not accepting. And here we come back to the title of the article. Not accepting where I was, but constantly trying to go back to where I was before, or going somewhere where I could, you know, that's another coping mechanism, to go to the future and say, you know, I'd like to be there. So not being in here and now. And if I'm not in here and now, I also miss out on what is opposite me. For example, this lovely conversation today, you know, if I constantly think of what else I should do or what I will do afterwards or before, whatever, I'm not present. I don't feel those emotions, and I miss out on a lot. And I think this, again, Corona gives us a good opportunity, if we can allow ourselves to just live what is there. It doesn't have to be connected, and doesn't necessarily, I think this is another thing, you mentioned it, the brain. It's not necessarily the emotions that are coming up have to do with Corona. You know, Corona is just the framework. So there might be all things, there might be things that we never allowed ourselves. So this is a fantastic moment to be here and now and just feel what it is. So one day we might be happy, and one day we might be grieving, and one day we might be how do you say, optimistic about the future, and one day we might be scared. So all these things are absolutely legitimate.
Yeah.
And as the Buddhists say nicely, emotions are like how do we call that, the sky, when the sky has clouds.
Right.
The emotions are like clouds. They come and they go, and that's actually what emotions are. But they need space. They have this vast heaven up there to travel, you know, but they're not that bad as long as you give them space, and as long as you give them a moment of attention. And then it's actually not as intense as we sometimes fear that, and we push it down, and you know, instead. So arriving in here and now, I think, is a really good opportunity at the moment.
Yeah, I really like that idea too, of thinking of, okay, what's the role of the past, present, and future in a time like this, right? Where the future seems so unthinkable and anxiety provoking. The past, difficult moments from the past can come up even unexpectedly, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then, oh, I'm supposed to arrive in the present, and the present is so empty. I think for most people, it's empty relative to. I guess it depends who you're talking to. Some people are faced with a very extra busy present, if they're working in an industry that's now overloaded, like healthcare or a lot of IT services as well, or if you have your kids at home in front of you, right? So for many people, the present is like extra loaded.
Yeah.
But in other ways, it's distilled, right? Because even if you have all that, you've just got those things to focus on.
Exactly.
You don't have the same distractions that you would normally have. You can't go out. You can't go shopping. You can't go to shows. You can't see your friends in the same way. So a lot of people are being forced into, sitting with themselves, and dealing with themselves in one way or another. And I like this idea of grieving as a process of like presentifying everything, like, so it's not avoiding the past, it's not avoiding the future, but it's saying, okay, it's remembering that like what's coming to me of the future is not the future, it's my present view of it. And what's coming to me of the past, I think to properly grieve is to no longer treat it as the past, right? So to say, okay, if you have an image of, I don't know, your old country, your previous country where you used to live, if you have those images coming in, the process of grieving is trying to say, okay, it's not that I'm going to keep thinking of the old country, it's that I'm going to find a way to live with whatever remains of the old country in my new life, right? So to try to somehow make it present. And I think, to go back to your metaphor of like the sky and the clouds, I think part of that process too is trying to differentiate the sky from the clouds. So letting the clouds be there, but saying like, okay, those are the clouds and they're coming and going. And behind that is the sky, is that really that present core self, I guess, or something more consistent.
So the sky is actually us.
Yeah.
It's and the emotions are coming and going. And I think if we just it's not just if we learn to accept, yes, I was super happy on one side to leave that, to go to this new country, and on the other side I was super scared because I was shy. I had no friends. I had to start living on my own for the first time. I had no help, so I was scared as well. And I think accepting, at least this is my personal experience, and I was just talking to a client the other day, and we were kind of like, where to go, and then we just said, if we can just accept what is there at the moment, that's half of the path, half of the work, because then you don't need to fight it anymore. You don't need to say, no, you're not there. You don't need to push it down and put it in the pressure cooker. You don't need to ignore it. You don't need all that energy, because that's energy consuming, and if you can just say, okay, I'm sad, and I'm still sad, although I love where I am, but still there is one part in me, and it can be very tiny, that is a bit sad, because I miss ABC, In the other side, you also start appreciating and say, I didn't know how much I appreciated this and that, which I had back there. I just thought it's normal. And now that I'm here, I feel like, wow, I'm missing that. This one little thing, or two. Could be food, could be a place, could be whatever, an experience, or the watches that are over everywhere, whatever it is, So you start appreciating, and then you start seeing what is in this new place, and you start embracing and loving those things again. And, this is how it keeps going on. But I think really the acceptance of whatever emotion is there, it's okay. It's okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's nice to talk about, what can we do as well, or what are steps to take that can move us in that direction. So
Mm,
aiming for acceptance of all the possible contradictory things that are going through us at a
mm.
moment. I think that's a good first step, an important and essential one. Um, you were talking
Let
about,
me ask you, what
yeah,
are you doing for that?
what am I doing for that? Oh boy.
One
Uh,
thing that works for you.
so there are different things that I can do that put me in touch with the feeling when I think, or different feelings when I feel like I have to. I'm pretty good at finding different techniques or different things that allow me to live my feelings about the past. And I think maybe I need to do this with my feelings about the future as well. The future is a little bit harder for me to process my emotions. So things that will help me, we talked about this the other day, music.
Mm-hmm.
Music is a really big one. Music, I really emotionally resonate with music. So I'll hear a song, not every song, right? But there's certain types of songs or certain songs that I know I'll put them on and it will just take me right into that emotion and I can live it as if it's happening right then and
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
using that, so sometimes doing that very consciously. I
Mm.
think in general, like consciously owning what you're going through,
Yeah,
almost to
yeah,
the point of exaggerating it, like a catharsis, right? Like
yeah,
that's what artistic catharsis was meant to be, right? Is okay, whatever you're
exactly.
going through, like make it very deliberate, exaggerate it if you have to. So if you feel a little bit of anger, go and listen to death metal and get it out and really just, okay, let me be fully in my anger right now, or whatever. It doesn't have to be that. I don't really listen to much death metal personally, but it can be anything, right? So music is one. Um, Even I think we talked about movies and TV shows, right? Like if you get, or books, of course, basically stories, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Fictional
yeah, yeah.
or nonfiction,
Mm.
but having other characters stand in for what you feel and what you're
Yeah,
going through.
yeah.
I did that the other day. I recommended one of my favorite TV shows to a friend, and we were we were talking about it, and then I actually got to writing about it.
Mm.
And that was great because it allowed me to process the part of that show that really resonated with me and what I was
Mm-mm.
going through. Oh, I see a little shadow.
Yeah, yeah. We only see the shadow, I can see.
Cat-shaped shadow.
Yeah, actually, pets are sometimes also supportive, But yeah, I'm with you there. Movies, I also have that. Sometimes it really helps me to open that channel that lets me cry, because I'm not always easy to cry. I'm getting better the older I get. What helps me personally a lot is being in my body. So I'm doing yoga or sitting down to meditate. But sometimes I can't sit down to meditate. Then I do something meditative. Like meditative is everything that is repetitive. So I do woodwork because I'm so focused on what am I doing there that I really kind of distance myself from whatever is happening.
Yeah.
And that works very well for me because then the good thoughts, the pure thoughts are coming back. It's not that I don't think anything. It's just so yoga, working, manual working for me, sitting on the beach and watching the waves coming and going. Yesterday I was sitting there. I was so lost that I got swept by the waves completely. And I was like, wow, I was really somewhere else, not in here and yet. You see. So I think it's very important that we
Yeah.
identify those things that are useful for us. Some people cook, some people um,
Yeah.
it's actually things that we do that are repetitive, and it can be cleaning, simple things. Doesn't, you can
Yeah.
stay very well in your house, you know, cleaning. Or sometimes for me, it's really sitting down with my cat and just being with that cat and looking at it, and, you know, just kind of observing very closely and being as present as possible, you
Yeah,
know.
like getting on their level, right?
Yeah,
Because they're very
exactly.
they're
Yeah,
not they're not in here in their heads. They're
exactly.
very much
Yeah,
an instinctive
yeah,
presence, right? So being
yeah,
yeah, really anything when we say meditation, I think well anything really that gets you out of your conscious thoughts
yeah,
or even unconscious, but anything out of your thoughts and
yeah.
into uh something more something more present. So it could be like you're saying
Absolutely.
things like woodworking, like cleaning, like cooking. I know a lot of people like to knit as
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
drawing, or
yeah,
making music as well, right?
yeah.
So
Making music, writing, voila.
writing
Uh,
can go either way, though I find, because writing it's still a rational process. So unless you're maybe if you're writing very creatively, if you're writing poetry or something, or if you're writing a story that's not about you at all, then yeah, I can. But I think if you're writing something that's maybe more like a journal entry or something like that, or an article,
yeah, something like that, because
that
it
would
kind of
that's
gets it,
more
you get it out of the system, you know, and it's
that's
like,
more
oh,
the deep dive, like okay,
yeah,
I'm gonna lean into what I'm feeling, right?
exactly. You write it down and you feel like, okay, it's only 5 lines, you know. I thought it's so much more.
Yeah,
So that part of writing, right? Yeah,
yeah,
you're right, because if you talk to Buddhists who teach you meditation, they say don't read, don't write, you know, don't listen to, not even music, they say, actually, you
mm,
know, so everything like kind of distracts you in a way as well, because then you focus there. So the idea is actually to focus on yourself, so focus on inner, so like you breathe. That's why I like sitting with my cat, because I just sit and breathe and look, and you know, and whatever she does or he does, it's I don't need to react to anything, you know,
I
which
really
is
like going for slow walks, which is something I've rediscovered.
mm,
If you can really walk at a slow pace, it just
mm,
kind of puts me on this wavelength of just observing everything. So
yeah,
it's not as pure a meditation as sitting with your eyes closed and just watching everything go through your mind, but I think you still get into that brainwave where
yep,
you're not trying to impose narrative on things. You're just letting things come to you. And I think that's an important way to stay present, is to
yeah,
really, it's anything that gets you out of that, like the little hamster wheel.
yeah. The point is not to fill it with something else. So actually there is walking meditation. So I have been a couple of times in a meditation retreat. So there is, I mean, it's a little bit slower than the slow, but you're right, because then you're really in your body when you do this slow walking, you know, you feel your body, you're breathing, you're observing. It's not like you need to reach a point. You're just walking for the sake of walking.
Mm.
It's not like I need to go there and I need to do whatever I need to do there, you know. So that's a very good point, actually. Any chores, you know, in the house, cleaning, washing, ironing, whatever we do there, decluttering, um, where we really, and I think it's again this breath, you know, the breath to feel what we feel,
Yeah.
or to sense our body, to know always. I have my coach, my awareness coach. He says, "Do you know where your little?" He says 2, 3 things, but one of them is like, "Do you know what your little finger does very right this very moment?" Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Focusing on really tiny details like that
yeah,
is,
yeah, yeah,
yeah. I mean, even like for people who have their kids with them, I think even playing with your kids,
yeah,
again, a way to get out of
yeah.
your mind. If you're just okay, let's really just go for it and get in there and not think about it. Sometimes kids force you not to think.
Yeah,
I've
kids are fantastic for that.
I've been teaching my niece a dance routine by Zoom.
Mm.
And actually it's good motivation, because I know I can't get too serious about it with her. If I get too serious, she's going to
Yeah,
get
it's playful.
lost, or she's going to get lost. And so I've got to, at the end of the day, we're only doing it for fun. So it's a really nice, it forces me, have fun. You must have fun. You must keep it
Exactly.
light
Whatever you do,
and
fun.
present and easy, you know. So it's a good, but yeah, it really does help.
Yeah.
There were a few times where I didn't feel like doing it, but knowing that she was there and waiting for it, like really helped me to rally and get on that page. And then afterwards, you feel better, you know.
Gardening, by the way, is also, if you have the luxury of having a garden, gardening, you know, touching the earth, grounding yourself. That's also one of the things that's very helpful. I like knitting as well. And you know what? I just knit for the sake of knit. I open it at the end again. It's not that I need something be done or produced, you know. It's just like, you know, and then I open. Sometimes I keep it, sometimes like, no, from the beginning. But it's just this repetitive thing, you know. And it's kind of, it's calming, it's soothing. It's like a rock chair.
Yeah, yeah, like yeah, rocking back and forth in a rocking.
Yeah.
Do you think, would you have any advice for people who are still having a hard time facing that, right? Because, for example, in a lot of the examples that you're giving in the article where people are transitioning to a new phase
Mm.
and who maybe are trying to lose themselves, right? It's very easy to lose yourself in that new phase and forget to look back. What we're going through now is a little bit different. First of all, because it is an imposed change, and second of all, because we don't really have like that carrot to motivate us, right? We don't really know what's coming. We don't know what the future is going to look like, what positive or difficult things will come out of it.
Mm.
So we really are just kind of stuck with ourselves for the moment, and that can be hard. And I'm sure I know I still resist it sometimes, right? I still try to like fend it off or fight it off. Do you have any advice for people who are still feeling that resistance on how they can maybe start taking steps to more comfortably get in there?
So as I work also as a coach and as a solution focused coach, where we don't give advice, I would just suggest something, and then, you know, because, you know, you need to see everybody, like cultures, you know, like it's, everybody has his own development cycle, and everybody has the right to need as much time as they need for whatever how, you know, for every phase. So some people need a long time, and then overnight they go to the next one, where others have, for the first step they need only 2-3 days, and then the next phase is really intense. So each of us, depending on our history, on our you know, whatever you want to believe, how many lives you already had, so there's a lot of things that we carry around. So two things. One is what we said already: accept what it is, accept that I cannot accept it, accept that I'm struggling with it, state it and say, yes, I am struggling with it, I'm angry, I want this done, I want this, whatever, you know, I want to go back, I want to go forth, whatever it is. And maybe finding also a way, what we just said in the last couple of minutes, finding a way to give it a shape. So, you know, it can be creative, it can be, if somebody paints or makes music or listens to music, kind of let it really feel that, you know, really accept it. I think the acceptance is really, really important. And after you accept, I think the next part is to trust that the right thing will happen, because it's not that, actually nothing spectacular or different is happening at the moment than life. This is life, you know, we never know what tomorrow is. I think the important part is what, and I hope what we, the globe, people on living here, that we all, our friends and sisters and brothers, we will all understand better that, and I think we have forgotten that a little bit, that we need to enjoy the moment. We don't know what tomorrow is. We don't know if we live tomorrow. Not you, not me. I don't know if I wake up tomorrow morning, you know. So to live in here and now and do those things that are important and put priorities. What is it important? The family, the very best friends, that's what is important, and not the 500 million followers on wherever you have them. And nice to have them, you know, I don't mind. But I think really this, I just said to my sister today, I said, you know what, if if they let us out again.
Yeah.
I mean, I can go out, but they will let us a little bit further down the road. I want to see you. Of course I have 5 friends, but I can see with them online, like we do it here together. I mean, it's like we could be neighbors, basically. We're in different continents. So the important part is family. Those 1-2 people that are on top important, and that's to focus on the important things. So really, really remember what is important to me. Some people already start thinking what I'm going to take away from this phase that we are going through now. So that's a bit that. What is next? So what I want to keep from this experience, because it was more than what you need for new routines. You need 3 weeks and more. We already had more than 3 weeks, all of us. So some things we got used to, and maybe we don't want to lose the one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
What would you suggest that people do if they can't accept it or struggle with it? What are you telling your friends?
I think the same. I think, aiming for as radical an acceptance as you can, and giving that whatever name it is. And even I like this idea of saying, okay, I'm going to accept that I can't accept it.
Yeah.
And maybe even trying to name why you can't, like saying, okay, well, maybe there's pain involved in accepting something, or shame or fear or anger or whatever. Like, again, like if you name one emotion, it can lead to another and another. And yeah, just trying to put words on it. And sometimes we can do that by ourselves by writing it, but other times you do need to talk to people, right? So
yeah, exactly.
The cool thing now is that again, some people are stuck at home with several people around them. I guess I'm thinking more of our context, you and I, where we have less people around us. But there is more control in whose advice we seek out, or whose counsel or conversation or company we seek out, right? Like, you're not going to be thrust into, like, you're not going to be commuting to work with people around you, and then at the office with people around you, and then I have to go to this thing with people around you that you can choose. Like, if you know that this friend or this family member, if I talk to that person, they're going to help, like, you can consciously create that. You can think, who could I talk to right now that would help me put in that, get in that mindset, right? For some people, it will have to be a therapist or a coach, but thankfully these people are still available, even under the current circumstances.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been thinking about that too. Anytime that I feel myself like getting worked up about something, I'm trying to remind myself, okay, who could I talk to that would help me get perspective on this? Not that they're going to tell me what to do, but like, who could I say this to that I'm concerned about this, and I know that they're going to come back to me with something that will help me, put things in the proper place. So that's one way to do it, if you can.
Yeah, and I think what is also important now that I came to my mind while you were talking, Robyn, is that we need to be aware that people are different. So, and everybody has the right to go through his own process on his own way, because everybody's doing what they can do and the best they can do at this very moment. And we don't know tomorrow. Somebody who struggles for 3 weeks might tomorrow wake up and have the epiphany. So we don't know. So it's very important to trust the process. This is what you're going through, fine. You struggle, fine, this is what it is, accept it and don't fight it. I think this is where it gets stuck, when you start fighting it, ignoring it, wanting it different, all these things. Just ignore, accepting what there is. And people are different. Not everybody's HSP, not everybody is an introvert or an extrovert. So different methods, different ways of dealing with it. And tolerating that, and having love and empathy for people who are just different or who are similar to us, which is nice for us because we better feel them. But A lot of people, they're different, and that's fine.
Yeah. It's interesting that you bring the word trust, or I guess a kind of faith in as well, because I think I know that one is particularly difficult for me, and I think I suspect I'm not alone, because so much of our society here in North America especially is really set up on not trusting, not leaving things to chance, not trusting anything beyond your own capacities, right? And like saying, I'm not going to leave this to somebody, like the future is up to me, and the actions that I take, and it's on me to be planful and prepared, right? And I think this new experience of loss of control is going to be kind of difficult for some. Yeah,
Yeah,
I find it. I mean,
yeah.
in some ways, I've been. In some ways, I've been getting used to it, because I've been doing a lot of freelance and contractual work over the last few years. So, I was joking with another friend who does that too, and we were like, "Yeah, it's normal not to know what your career is going to look like next year, what your job landscape is going to look like next year, right?" For us, we're like, "Yeah, this is usual, right? This is how we operate." But I still feel the weight of that expectation. I feel like there is an expectation, at least in the circles that I move in, that people will, that if you're doing it right, if you're on top of things and you're organized, you know where you're heading. We place so much value on that I think that's a value that's going to be challenged. And I don't know. I guess, yeah, collectively, because we really don't know, things will be a little bit shaken up for the next 2 years at least, right? So I think
Absolutely.
I think we're all going to have to start, even when things start going back to normal, I think we're all going to have to start living with that sense of like, okay, you're not really totally in control of
Yeah.
where things are going to head.
I know very well what you mean. Living between Greece and Switzerland here in Europe is actually those two extremes. Whereas in Switzerland, we are very, we plan things ahead. We know what we're doing. If I say I will come and visit you in 3 weeks, I will come no matter what, unless I'm sick. In Greece, it's the opposite. We say, yes, I will come, but tomorrow, because I don't make an appointment for in 2 days, because even before Corona, we say we don't know what's going to happen. That has to do not so much with we don't trust, but it's rather the experience of the history, So, for example, laws changing so people watch TV every day, not now always, because what do you say? Laws change on a weekly base. If they change on a weekly base, how can I make an appointment for in 3 weeks? I don't even know which law will be in place. I'm exaggerating a bit, but this is actually the tendency. And this is the part I really like when being in Greece, because it keeps teaching me, and personally I like it much more. And I can give that example, if you allow me. I mean, we didn't even know if we would have the conversation today last night, right? We decided this morning, saying, okay, let's see how we are. Let's see if we are in a good space and we feel like doing that, right? So of course we could have planned it since 3 weeks, and still we wouldn't have known if we are in a good place today or not. So I think I don't say you can do everything like that. I think it shouldn't be the one or the other. I think it should be both. So in my professional life, I'm much more organized and planned, of course, obviously, and having appointments with clients. But in my private life, I try really to keep it, as unplanned as possible. And I enjoy that. And I think this is really, again, coming back to the article, being in here and now, arriving in the presence, and also giving myself allowance, saying, no, today I don't feel good. Like I had one appointment this week, and I said, okay, it was something that could be postponed, a first time contact. And I said, I'm sorry, because of some family things that came up, may we please move that appointment? And we moved it, and of course I risk that something might not happen, but having that appointment just to have it, and being with my mind somewhere else, would also not be beneficial, or not also not fair towards me, the other person. So trusting the process, yeah, not an easy thing to do in our, depending on where we are and in what culture we live.
Yeah, I've had a lot of discussions with one of my friends who's from that part of the world too, and it just keeps telling me like, oh, where I'm from, like there's always a war. There's always a war. There's always political turmoil.
Cannot plan.
We never really know from one week to the next exactly what things are going to look like, and people don't panic because it's just the reality of life, right? Yeah. Whereas here we're not accustomed to that, and it comes with a lot of privileges and freedom, but at the end of the day, it's not the whole story, right?
Yeah.
We really force things into that perspective, and we were lucky that life was kind of playing along, but you can only go so long with that level of control, and then life kind of takes it back. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you also have some other culture in your blood, your veins, so this trust that you have for your business, that, and actually this is big. I need to acknowledge you here, because that's, it's actually, how do you say that? Your existence. I don't know. This is your life based on it, your financial income and everything. And you're relaxed enough and trusting that from year to year there are solutions.
Yeah.
I don't know that many people who live like that, so you have it. So it's fantastic, and I don't know where it comes from, but you have it and you live it. And yes, sometimes we get a reality check with our surrounding, but there's also, I can tell you from experience, a lot of people who would love to be like that, but they just don't dare it. So sometimes, there's a little bit of jealousy, like, she's doing it and I'm not, So it's also that. And of course, if you're a family father with 3 kids and a wife, it's not so easy to do that, to have a lifestyle like that, or a working mother, and she's with 2 kids, maybe divorced or something. So let's be honest, it's not for everyone, but
but everyone now, regardless of the situation, is going to have to come to terms with that a little bit. So that I find kind of a sticky point.
Yeah, I really think it will help us to reconsider what is important. Environment, family, helping each other. Still a lot of lovely initiatives where people help each other, because now I can only help my neighbor. My sister is too far away, so I cannot even help my sister. I need to, but okay, let's not help my sister because there's another neighbor who can help her, and I help my neighbor. So and I think that will help us to be a little bit, and also the nature is, I think, really taking a lovely break at the moment from all the traffic and from all the pollution. And today I saw one airplane on the sky, and my sister told me that they coming 2 airplanes per day now. I felt like, wow, the silence. We hear the birds, we don't hear cars and motorbikes, So a lot of good things here, and I'm very sure, as you said, I think this is going to have an impacting, a lasting impact on the next years, not to say decades, what is happening now. So history is written.
Well, it is exciting to be part of it. It's not boring.
Yeah, and it's exciting to see later what we're gonna, do out of it. So
yeah.
And it's also nothing new. If you look back, like every 100 years, kind of, we have a big catharsis, because people need to learn, we need to develop, and we don't take a next step out of comfy zone and it's all everything nice and beautiful. So we need that tough reminder, which this time is over thanks God it's not a war out there, it's kind of an internal health war, health reminder, wake up call, let's put it like that. And I'm very glad it's not a war, because it's tough enough already, So
we would have that
very
phrase,
nice talking to you.
have that phrase, inshallah, right?
Exactly.
There
Yeah,
you
yeah.
go. That's the one.
And today is the first day of Ramadan, which was, even that was not sure if they would have it.
Right.
So yesterday there was a ruling that from the Supreme Court that they will have it. Yeah, you see, even So we need a little bit of spirituality. I think that will help all of us.
It's definitely a time to entertain that dimension of things.
Yeah.
All
Absolutely.
right. Well, I think we've covered a lot of good ground today. Any final words to add?
Well, first of all, I really enjoyed to talk to you. Thank you very much for your questions and for your reflections, and also for your summarizing what you see and what you hear, because that's very, very, very lovely to hear what I said and what you can hear from that. So that's fantastic. Final reflection. Well, as I said in the beginning, I hope for I think if I personally, and maybe a couple of sisters and brothers out there with me, can learn to be in the present and be better in being in the present a little bit, every now and then, I'm very positive that this will also have a fantastic impact on our world, on the future. So our children and grandchildren will have also a good life on this planet.
Here's hoping.
Yes. And here I say, inshallah.
Definitely. Well, thank you very much, Regina. Before I say goodbye, for anyone who does listen to this and would like to know where to follow you or to find you, where should I be sending them?
Well, I think the easiest is to visit me on my LinkedIn profile. There you will find the connection to my website and email. You can text me there. So send me an email, both from my website or from my LinkedIn profile. So if you write my name, then, or actually, I only have my first name here. Should have put both.
Oh, that's okay. I'm sure to include it.
Great. So yeah, I'll be very happy to talk to you and continue the conversation. So yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
The pleasure was mine, Robyn. Thank you very much.
And stay safe, stay healthy.
Same for you.
Stay present.
See you. Thank you very much. Bye, Robyn. Bye-bye.
Bye.